Breaking news, the entry list for the biggest race of the World Endurance Championship this season has been officially revealed, and we now know each and every entry that is expected to compete at Le Mans this year. The list includes all full-time entries and of course some additional ones, and some of the cars that are set to race are quite surprising as well. So this is a full breakdown of the 2025 entry list for the legendary 24 Hours of Le Mans. A grand total of 62 cars will compete in the 93rd running of the iconic French endurance race, and each of the cars will be separated into 3 categories, just like last year. This includes the 1GT category of LMGT3, the annual return of LMP2, and finally the Hypercar class, where of course we'll see cars battling for overall success, and that one-of-a-kind Le Mans trophy. With the entry list now revealed, let's start off with that flagship category, and for 2025, the Hypercar class will feature a total of 21 cars. However, there is a real possibility that we might see another entry, which I'll get into later on. First up on the entry list are those 2 new Aston Martins, as the Valkyrie AMR LMH will be making its Le Mans debut this year, as both the 007 and 009 cars will be featured on the grid, thanks to the Heart of Racing team. Next up are 3 Porsche 963s from the factory squad of Porsche Penske Motorsport. Alongside the full season entries of the number 5 and number 6 Porsches will be a third car, which is the number 4 Porsche. Since the team secured the overall IMSA championship last year, they have received a special invite for the event at the Circuit de la Sarthe, and for this year, the number 4 car will be driven by recent Rolex 24 Daytona winners Felipe Nasr and Nick Tandy, who also happened to drive this exact car at Le Mans last year. Meanwhile, the third racer hasn't been confirmed as of yet, and while a lot of us want to see 4-time F1 champion Sebastian Vettel in the car, I don't think it's likely to happen this year. In fact, another world champion is seemingly first in line to race the 963, as Vettel's compatriot and Formula E champion Pascal Wehrlein is set to be the third racer, and the German racer has already had experience behind the wheel of the LMDH, as he recently drove at Daytona for JDC Miller Motorsports. Next up is the 5-in-a-row winners of Le Mans Toyota Gazoo Racing, who are back with the matte black painted number 7 and number 8 Toyota GR010 hybrids, and the successful Japanese marque hope to reclaim the crown at Le Mans from their opposition in 2025. Speaking of a rival for Toyota, Cadillac Hertz Team Jota are next on the list, as they bring both of their full-time entries of the number 12 and number 38 cars onto the grid, as the British squad look to challenge for Cadillac's first win. And by the way, this won't be the last time you hear about Cadillacs in this video, as we'll come back to them later on. Following the subject of Cadillac is another serious challenger for the win, BMW, as both the number 15 and number 20 M Hybrid V8s are back on the grid thanks to Team WRT, and like for the full season, included in their lineup is longtime Formula 1 driver Kevin Magnussen, who's alongside some other really talented racers. Moving on to Alpine, who return to their home event for the 4th time in the Hypercar class, and they'll be bringing both of their A424 entries, as the number 35 and number 36 cars will be returning to the grid thanks to the Alpine Endurance team. Obviously, the manufacturer to beat this year is Ferrari, who have won the last 2 times at Le Mans with the 499P, and for 2025, they are back to win again. Once again for this year, they are bringing both of the factory number 50 and number 51 Ferrari AF Corsa entries, as well as the number 83 privately entered yellow Ferrari from AF Corsa. Next is Peugeot, who return to Le Mans for the 3rd year in succession, and like for the full season, the Peugeot Total Energies team will bring both the number 93 and number 94 cars to challenge for the win this year. Then there's the 4th of the Porsche 963s, as this is the FAT International sponsored number 99 Proton competition car. And by the way, keep this team and Hypercar entry in mind, as I'll be talking about them later on. Finally on this list is 2 very cool entries, and both are Cadillacs. That's right, judging by the recently revealed slots, both IMSA teams that run V Series R entries will indeed be attending this year's Le Mans. While this is the Whelen Engineering and AXR team's third Le Mans in a row, this entry list confirms that for the very first time, Wayne Taylor Racing will be competing at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. The Indianapolis-based team will be bringing over one of their IMSA Cadillacs, and it will be using the number 101. Usually the team's main number is 10, but since another entry on the grid is using that number, they just added a 1. This is of course similar to what the red Cadillac team does with their number 311 car. As for the drivers of these exciting additional entries, the WTR Cadillac will be driven by both Taylor brothers of Ricky and Jordan, and they'll be joined by fellow IMSA teammate Felipe Albuquerque. Meanwhile, the Whelen Cadillac will be driven by Jack Aiken, Felipe Drugovich, and Frederick Vesti, and with full-time IMSA driver Earl Bamber in the Jota Cadillac, he of course cannot be part of the lineup. So that concludes Hypercar. Now let's move on to LMP2, which makes its triumphant return with 17 cars racing in this year's event. And by the way, just like years before, all cars racing are using the Oreca 07 chassis. First up are those two Proton competition entries, the number 9 and number 11, with the number 9 car being an entry in collaboration with the Iron Lynx. Then there's the number 16 RLR entry, and this team is making their debut at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Next are two entries from the successful squad of United Autosports, as last year's winners of Le Mans in LMP2 are back with the number 22 and number 23 cars. Like a lot of entries right now in the P2 category, not all the drivers have been confirmed, but I do want to point out that Dutch racer Renger van der Zande, who currently races for Acura in IMSA GTP for Meyershank Racing, will make an appearance in the number 22 car at La Sarthe. One of van der Zande's IMSA teammates, Colin Braun, will also be on the grid this year, in the next car on this list, which is the number 24 Nielsen Racing Oreca 07. Moving on, and for this year, Algarve Pro Racing will bring two entries to Le Mans, which are the number 25 and number 45 cars. One of the team's drivers for this year is going to be 2022 F2 champion Théo Pourchaire, and this means we have 5 former champions from either F2 or the former series GP2 on the grid, which besides the previously named French racer includes Felipe Drugovich, Mick Schumacher, Nick de Vries, and Stoffel van Dorn, who are all racing in the Hypercar class. Next is EDEX Sport, who will also be bringing 2 entries, just like APR, which I mentioned a moment ago. First is the number 28 car, and the other is the number 75 car. And one of the French squad's racers will be 3-time W Series champion Jamie Chadwick, who also races for the team in ELMS. Next is TDS Racing, and they'll make an appearance with the number 29 Oreca 07 entry. 2023 Le Mans LMP2 winners Inter-Europol competition will also be back on the grid, and for the very first time since 2022, 2 of the Polish team's entries will be on the grid, which includes the number 34 and number 43 cars. Next up is LMGT3 champions from last year, Pure Racing, who are back in LMP2 with CLX Motorsport. For this year, a single entry has been added to the list from the organizations, and this number 37 Oreca car could be a real threat for the win, especially considering the 2 drivers that have been named on the lineup, as it includes LMGT3 champion Alex Malikin and seriously talented IMSA GTP racer for both Acura and Cadillac, Tom Blomqvist. Next up is the number 48 VDS Panis Racing car from the European Le Mans Series, and the only driver who's been named a part of the lineup is Oliver Gray. Then there's an entry from AF Corsa, which is the number 155 car, and finally there's the number 199 AO Racing by TF Sport car, which could see the return of Spike to Le Mans. Moving on to the final class of the entry list, LMGT3, which features 24 cars on the grid this year. First up in the category is an entry that competes throughout the full season, and that is the number 10 Aston Martin Vantage GT3 from Racing Spirit of Lehman, and this team is another squad that is making their debut at Le Mans. Another team making its debut at Le Mans is AWA, as after winning the Bob Aitken Award, the Canadian team is coming over from IMSA with their number 13 Corvette Z06, and if they win Le Mans, they'll have won both big endurance races of 2025, having also taken victory at Daytona in the GTD class. Next up is the 3 Ferrari 296 entries from AF Corsa. The first two are the full season number 21 and number 54 Ferraris from the Vista AF Corsa team, while an additional entry with the number 150 is entered by the Richard Mille AF Corsa team. Following that is the second Aston Martin Vantage GT3 Evo on the grid, as the Heart of Racing team will make their second LMGT3 Le Mans start with the number 27 car, alongside their participation in the Hypercar class with those new Valkyries. Next are the two BMW M4s from Team WRT, which are the number 31 and number 46 cars. Last year, BMW were on the podium in LMGT3 when they secured second place with the number 31 car, but in 2025, they'll be hoping to get an even bigger result, which of course is the GT class win at Le Savre. Alongside the one-off AWA Z06 will be the two full-season Corvettes from TF Sport, which are the number 33 and number 81 cars. With Ben Keating back in the WEC, this means that the Texan racer will make his return to Le Mans, and the last time he raced there, he of course won. And considering the start of the season Chevrolet have had in the WEC, it's fair to say they'll be challenging for the win at Le Mans. Next is another additional entry, which is the number 57 Kessel Racing Ferrari, and the team will be making their comeback to Le Mans for the very first time since 2023. Alongside their participation in the LMP2 class, United Autosports will also be back in LMGT3 to win, and they'll be bringing both the number 59 and number 95 McLaren 720S GT3 Evo entries. Moving on to Mercedes, who will be making their first appearance at Le Mans in more than 25 years. Not one, not two, but 3 Mercedes AMG GT3 entries will be on the grid, and all of them are entered by the Italian team of Iron Lynx. Racing in the event will be the full season number 60 and number 61 cars, and joining those entries will be the one-off number 63 Mercedes, and that car is there because Iron Lynx got an invite to Le Mans because they won the ELMS championship in LMGT3 with their previous partner Lamborghini. The number 63 Mercedes also features an exciting driver lineup as well, which includes Brenton and Stefan Grove and factory Mercedes racer Luca Stoltz, and in fact, this is the exact same driver lineup that Grove Racing had for their first Intercontinental GT race of the Bathurst 12-hour back in February. Next, there are 2 full-season Ford Mustang entries from Proton Competition and 2 Lexus RCF GT3s from the Akotis ASP team, and there are no changes from the full season at either manufacturer. Then there's the defending LMGT3 winners of Le Mans, Porsche, who are back this time with an additional 911. Manthey Racing are here with 3 entries, which includes the 2 full season cars, which are the fan favorite number 85 Iron Dames car and that number 92 First Form Porsche. It's also true that Manthey Racing's additional entry will also be competing in the event, and the car will use the number 90. And it also has a great driver lineup as well, which includes last year's winner Klaus Bachler. Finally, the 62 car field is concluded by the 5th and final Ferrari 296 GT3, and this is the number 193 Zigo Tempesta racing car, which received an invite for winning the GT World Challenge Europe Bronze Cup last year. Now, I also want to point out that there is a reserve list of entries, and these cars will be in the event if an entry drops out, but this is highly unlikely. At the top of this entry list is actually a Hypercar entry, and that is the number 44 Porsche 963 from Proton Competition. I believe this entry would be the IMSA variant of Proton's Porsche, which is the Mustang sampling car, and the entry already has Tristan Vautier confirmed as a driver. The car will likely not race in the event, but if I were Proton and had the ability to do this, I would swap out one of their LMP2 cars for this additional Hypercar, And that's nothing against LMP2, but I do think this would give Proton an even bigger chance at winning Le Mans overall. So that concludes this breakdown of the entry list, and we now know each and every entry that is expected to compete at the 2025 edition of the legendary 24 Hours of Le Mans. Out of all these cars, teams, manufacturers, and drivers, who will you be supporting during the event? Well, make sure to let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you like endurance racing, definitely subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, because I'm releasing videos on a weekly basis regarding the WEC, IMSA, Intercontinental GT, and much more. To watch more content now, check out these suggested videos I've put on screen. For now though, that's all from me. Thanks for watching.